The final part of the Ronaldo interview was aired, and it would seem the ball is now firmly in Manchester United's court. What are they going to do after everything that was said in the interview on TalkTV with Piers Morgan? Was there enough in there to see Cristiano bring the game, or the club I should say, into disrepute? Is Ronaldo really entitled to more respect? This word respect kept on coming up in the conversation because of his achievements in the game, or has he simply become delusional with his standing? We're going to hear a clip of it in a moment, Martin, but what was your take on it? It's the first time we've had the chance to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to half an hour of it this morning, and I know, there's a whole lot more to listen to, but this is an issue really of whether, and he's one of the all-time greats, Jim, and I think he's football royalty. This is an issue of whether he should be speaking out or not. And now the rules have always been that you keep everything in-house. Sir Alex Ferguson would have taught him that. And this really now is a player that understands that there's no respect. There's been no respect from the manager. So he feels...
Do you think that?
100%. And what the root of this issue is he's lost a child, an incredibly emotional moment. He has another child that's ill. And when he called in to say he wasn't going to make it into the training, there was a doubt struck. They didn't really trust him, and he felt at that point, I think, Jim, that was the beginning of the end for him at Manchester United. Now, thereafter, there's been issues. He calls himself the Black Sheep. He says in the summer there were 8 individuals, but only his name was raised. He feels he's been picked upon, and that's where there's an issue. And I feel when you have a player of that standing, he is, Jim, what he's achieved in the game, 4 Champions Leagues, I think he scored in 3 consecutive finals, a rake of goals. He goes into this World Cup with... 194 caps, 117 goals. It's ridiculous. But really, he's getting a taste of, despite what you've achieved in the game, you're just going to be treated like everybody else. And I think Ten Hag should have given him a little bit of extra care, and because of what he was going through in the summer. And that was the beginning of the end for him in how it started to unfold, the relationship, him and Ten Hag. A lack of communication. And Ronaldo sees everything after that, Jim, as just words. But he sees the actions, which is to put me on the last 3 minutes, is what really counts. And then he's gone too far. He regrets that. But now I don't think there's any way back for him. I really do not feel, unless there's some...
Rio Ferdinand now says there's no way back for him. You agree with that?
There can't
at
be.
United.
There can't be.
But he says there's still plenty of takers for him. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And then, do you know what, Jim? We could still see a Messi-Ronaldo final. My wall chart tells me that could happen.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Right.
But I think they're probably just past their best.
Okay.
But nonetheless, he can have the final say on the pitch. He can say with Portugal, look at me, you've made a mistake. And the manager kept saying he didn't do pre-season, fella. He didn't using it as a stick to beat him with. But I feel he was a top pro and could have been used more. Should have been used better.
We're all agreed on that. Simon, I'll come to you in a second. He was uncomfortable with how the media doubted him and his professionalism in the summer. He regrets leaving the stadium in a pre-season game against Rayo Vallecano. The black sheep comment, Martin covered it. He apologised because considered the chapter was closed. He labelled Ten Hag not bringing him on against Manchester City out of respect to his career as excuses. He felt provoked by Ten Hag in the Tottenham situation. He isn't the kind of player to come on for the last 2 minutes. Felt it contradicts his stance from the City game. In fact, he felt that Ten Hag provoked him.
If he didn't go far enough after walking down the touchline at Tottenham, he certainly went far enough in this interview. I think the biggest beneficiaries of this interview are obviously TalkTV. I don't understand where the benefit is for Ronaldo. I think it's an awful interview. I argue about the unchallenged nature of Piers Morgan's positioning, but I do understand that in this world of media that we live in, people have got other expectations managed. You get these guys to interview. You get to interview Donald Trump, or you get to interview Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, or Cristiano Ronaldo because of their profile in the world. You kind of get to ask them the questions that they want to answer, and you don't challenge it. So that's what we've got to manage our expectations with. I look at what he's said. I don't think that... I think universally, when we discussed it in the studio with the pros, people understood why he wasn't put on against Man City, because Man United were getting humiliated, and other pros that I spoke to, I think Martin included, understood the reasons why Ten Hag didn't put him on against Man City when they were getting absolutely humiliated. No one can make sense of Ten Hag's position around putting him on against Tottenham Hotspur, or trying to put him on against Tottenham Hotspur with minutes to go, and perhaps he'll explain that in some point in the future. But Ten Hag had an opportunity. He didn't have to have Ronaldo. If a Saudi Arabian football club, if you want to believe this nonsense, that a Saudi Arabian football club offered him 350 million euros to come play for them, then you must believe that Man United must have been able to get a huge fee for him too.
You think it's nonsense?
I question it. I question the reality behind it, and we'll obviously be able to see if someone can prove that sort of situation. I find the whole thing a very childish, puerile, self-indulgent whine-a-thon. I think Cristiano Ronaldo has had some tragedies in his life, and we understand those tragedies, and at no point should anyone diminish those. But I don't get the dynamic of why Ten Hag, unless he felt that he walks into a dressing room and he felt there was a problem and he wanted to take the biggest guy down in it. That might be part of it. But he's created a problem. Graeme Souness would have you believe that Ten Hag has had a conversation with his player, told him things that aren't true, so that he can have a bigger problem further down the line and have this explosion. This interview, in terms of it's a conversation about how Ronaldo feels the world's against him, how he feels maligned, whilst also telling us how wonderfully wealthy he is, how handsome he is, how everyone's jealous of him. Now, I don't take those things away, but I look at them and say, you're a grown man. Is this what you really wanted to talk about? Is this your version of events? Is this what we've come down to? Arguably, of a generation, the world's greatest footballer. This is it.
And is this it, Martin? Is this what we've come to
with
Ronaldo?
I don't agree. I thought it was compelling.
It was compelling.
I
don't know. You having a pop at Piers Morgan? I think it's.
Observation.
I think it's TV gold. Really, I think it's actually. I'm not going to sit here and judge the man. I just feel this is the mindset of how a top professional athlete works, and the football dressing room is like a jungle. He's talking here about a piece of meat and the way that he's been discarded. And for everything he's done in the game, he's just been wiped away.
But it's preposterous, Martin. How can you suggest that someone's getting paid £500,000 a week is a piece of meat? And we're talking about an indulged mentality.
I'm just explaining to you the mindset of the player.
But it's the wrong mindset, Martin. It needs to be corrected.
I'm not going to pass judgment. I'm just telling you why. I'm just telling you how he was in the interview, and that's why he's won what he's won.
Do you agree with that mindset?
To a certain extent, I do, because it's about survival within the game, and that's the only way you survive. And let me tell you, they show you the door pretty quickly at the end. So while you're there, you've got to have to make hay while the sun shines. That's always been the rules.
Well, while
it's
you're
a
there,
jungle.
While
you need to
there,
be
you
a
have
black belt to
What
survive. What
you have to do, what you have to do, surely, is be good at your job like everyone else has to be in a profession, and your career is as long as your talent.
Where I do feel he has been set up by the manager. Because of being a lack now.
To what end?
Because he's fallen into the trap where the manager hasn't really given him the respect he felt he deserved. It's difficult to give people respect when they keep asking for it.
To what end?
I can only imagine the manager has felt, what's going on with this player? He wants me to treat him differently to everyone else. But actually, maybe I deserve it because of what I've done. So that's maybe where there's a miscommunication. Who's right, who's wrong in that situation? And then after that, the player then, he can't take anymore. He decides to walk off, and that's when he makes the mistake. Cardinal sin. You've turned your back on the players. You can't do that. And that's where he's at fault.
And he apologised for it, and as far as he's concerned, the chapter's closed. That's not really his gift.
But he feels he's been pushed into that corner,
we talk about this. We talk about this idea that Ronaldo has been disrespected and disbelieved. By whom? When? He hasn't spoken to the Glazers. He acknowledges he hasn't spoken to the Glazers, but he'll tell you the Glazers don't care, because that's a narrative that will play very well with the listening Manchester United fan base. So which executive did you speak to that gave you the impression that they didn't care about the tragedy in your life?
Name him.
Name him. Because they won't name him, because what they do is they work in the abstract.
And Piers should have asked him to name him.
But they won't do it.
Look, I'm not looking.
Who am I to say about what Piers Morgan should
exactly,
do? He got himself an incredible interview.
Now. But what I'm looking at there is, I think he's saying about messages to the media from the manager, which is not being messaged to him inside, and he only looks at the decisions the manager makes. Well, that's Jim. I'm trying to put you in the mind of this guy who's been in every front. He's competitive in a financial world, in how he looks, in how he keeps his body, in what he does on the pitch, the goals he scores, the trophies he wins.
Yeah.
He doesn't just stop. He changes just like that.
Martin, put it this way: do you think he overstepped the mark in this?
Of course he has. But also, he wants to get it off his chest. He wants to discuss it. It's gold dust that we've got that. No, but it probably announces now that Ten Hag, who doesn't really want him anyway, it seems that way. He doesn't want to use him. He doesn't appear to want him. Clearly, there's an issue with their communication behind the scenes. Unless there's a public showing of handshake and discussion and a move on, he doesn't stay at Manchester United for the rest of the season.
He can't stay there, can he? Martin, he can't now stay there. Surely.
I don't believe he can, but I feel he's overstepped the mark again. But Jim, he's going into a World Cup, and he could, as I say now, he's going into that, and he's going to want to give his very best. I sincerely hope he stays fit for that, because as you get older, it becomes more difficult, and he could be sensational. But he wants to get that off. He wants to clear the decks.
But you'll continue to tell us he deserves more respect for what he's achieved.
No, I'm telling you that he's saying he wants more respect, and look what he's done in the game. He's football royalty. So when he walks through, if he comes in here today, Jim, if he comes in here today, what do? We roll out the red carpet, don't we? Because of what he's achieved in his game. There has to be a little bit of understanding. No?
I'm not so sure, Martin. I mean, I think these guys are rightly saluted for everything they've done. And absolutely, Ronaldo is one of the best, if not the best. Yes, we're agreed on that. But hang on a second.
He thinks, Jim, that he's been hit with a stick all the way through because of a family issue. When he had to choose between his family and football, he decided, having lost a son, he's got the other child was very ill with bronchitis. Guys, I can't come, and that was doubted.
But that's his version.
He says that was doubted.
I don't. First of all, if you were doubted, and if you're going to set fire to people, you might as well set fire to them, right? And the bottom line is that we don't. He talks about directives. He means directors. If we talk, and of course the language barrier comes into play. He hasn't spoken to the Glazers. We've got an understanding that the chief executive actually said to him that you can have as much time as you want. So who is this executive that told him which inhumane person would sit there and go, you've lost a child, by the way, we couldn't care less about the second child, get yourself into work. I can't imagine even the most, awful employer ever wanting to put themselves in an invidious position with one of the most visible people in the world of sport.
Can you imagine someone at United
Piers Morgan
did that,
could have
Martin?
asked, isn't it?
Again, Piers Morgan was brilliant getting the interview, and getting these interviews are so difficult to get. The challenge is when you get an interview, no one's going to push back on it, because that's not the ability that you have. So what we heard was, I felt, some very childish, immature observations about things that he felt he was entitled to, and a viewpoint that for some reason the world is against him. When you've just turned around and said, if he came in here, we'd be laying out the red carpet. So how does that translate into a mentality where everyone is after him, which is what he seems to think the media are?
So basically, the bottom line question, Martin, is we'll hit the break and we'll carry on the other side of it.
He had a gut feeling. This needs to be said. Let's argue. Let's debate it. He had a gut feeling. He had a sense. He used that sense throughout the whole of his career. In that sense,
he wants to get out of his contract.
He felt there was a feeling of doubt about him. You doubt me, I'm out the door.
Rubbish.
And that's where the beginning of the end started for him.
And do you think he would be doubted on subject matter like that?
About his one of his loved ones being ill. That's what he's saying. I'm only repeating what he's saying.
There was a senior figure at Manchester United who was insincere in his dealings with Ronaldo regarding this incredibly poignant topic.
A seed of doubt was questioning his professionalism, and he wondered why on earth
he makes a point that's unassailable, because no one can push back against it. He doesn't name them, and everyone's going to turn around and go, that's preposterous. He talks about people that didn't want him at the football club a year before. Who were they? Because our understanding of it is Man United rolled out the red carpet to get him.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.